When the indie boom began, there were many genres that made a comeback. Horror, management, simulation, survival and of course zombie games galore. They all had their return to fame and their time in the spotlight, but in a lot of cases they once again went back into relative obscurity, with only a handful of developers keeping them going on occasion. The roguelike, however, never lost its fame or spotlight. If anything, its popularity has continued to grow with each passing year, and is showing no signs of slowing down. There are many unimaginative clones and those that attempt something new and fail, but there are others that may not do anything new to shake up the genre, but add their own charm and personality to create a game that gives a whole new experience. And the game we're looking at today is one such game. Danger Gazers is a roguelite shooter developed and published by indie developer ShotX Studios, previously known for their titles Riskers, Contract and Deadground. It released on Steam January 2nd, 2020 for PC, Mac and Steam OS, and is priced at €8.19. Danger Gazers contains all the roguelite goodness that you would expect from the genre. It is fun and action packed with its fair share of unlockables and modern twists. But what truly separates Danger Gazers from others is its atmosphere, theme and soundtrack, that when combined together bring you on a funky journey of complete sensory overload. In Danger Gazers, your goal is to make your way through a total of 4 unique areas, each with their own environments. You will need to kill all the enemies in each randomly generated level to progress to the next, making your way to the boss level where you'll need to defeat them to progress. The environments you will be exploring are desert, swamp, snow and the Dark Heart, a mysterious realm of evil and chaos. Once all the enemies are defeated in a level, a map piece will be dropped, allowing you to leave and progress to your next destination via your caravan. For each enemy you kill, they will drop crystals. The more powerful the enemy is, the more crystals they will drop. These are used for an assortment of different purchases that I will get to shortly. Along with the crystals, enemies drop ammo, which are needed for the many special guns you can find, and medkits to restore your health. In each level there are chests to be found, there have been 3 in total. Blue chests contain a random weapon. The further in the game you progress, the more powerful the weapons you find become. Weapons include pistols, shotguns, machine guns, SMGs, grenade launchers, rocket launchers and more, including a variety of elemental weapons too, such as fire, ice, lightning and toxic. All of these weapons require ammo to use. You will always have your weaker default weapon available to you, allowing you to switch between it and those that you find which require ammo. New and slightly more powerful default weapons are obtained from defeating bosses. Red chests contain power-up items that grant you specific bonuses, but in some cases also disadvantages too. For example, some items may increase your bullet speed but you'll lose health points. Others may increase your damage but lower your accuracy, and so on and so forth. Finally is cursed chests that are opened at the cost of a certain amount of health, the cost of the health increasing the further you progress in the game. They contain both a weapon and a power-up item. You will also come across vending machines too, where you can purchase health and ammo. The more you purchase from the machines, the higher the cost becomes, making them very much a case of an emergency backup when things are looking grim. You can occasionally find gold cards in a level too. These special cards, there being 7 different types, increase a specific stat including damage, fire rate and walking speed as an example. You can pick up multiples of the same card for a stacking effect up to a total of 9. Just the gameplay of the levels alone has so much going on. There are so many different elements and mechanics at play simultaneously in Danger Gazers. It is quite impressive. The generation of levels is quite well done. With the exception of boss levels, you never feel that you're treading familiar ground or that you've seen similar maps time and time again, which is often one of the downfalls of roguelikes. Despite playing around 30 rounds in total, I never got bored of level generation or got a sense of deja vu, and it really helps with the game's replayability. The replayability is also greatly helped with a reasonable arsenal of weapons and good sized library of power-ups that the game has to choose from. The combat is solid, some though not all of the weapon sound effects are a bit meh. With the more powerful weapons requiring ammo, there is a certain level of tactics to the game. You need to figure out when it is time to use your powerful weaponry and when it's best to save it and use your default weapon, all the while learning the advantages and disadvantages of each. The difficulty spike takes a massive rise by the third area, showing that the game was very much designed with co-op in mind over single player. When on your own, it can at times feel quite unfair in the later stages. A small few of the later enemies move at such a speed that if it was any other game you'd think their AI is broken, and it is often these enemies that will be the end of you over any other. They really need to be toned down a bit, as right now they're just needless and unfair, not to mention their speed just makes their animations look really wonky. The bosses however are satisfactory. They aren't anything remarkable but definitely offer a fair challenge for the stage they appear. Despite the slight downfall with some of the later enemies and difficulty spikes, as a whole the combat is really exhilarating. The first few levels are a bit slow with very few enemies, but as you progress things begin to get quite frantic. eventually reaching complete anarchy by the end of the game. The various upgrades offer plenty of advantages and disadvantages, all of which need to be taken into consideration before picking them up, and with all their effects give each playthrough plenty of variation. If there was one thing I would like to see introduced, it would be a character stat screen. With the many power-ups changing stats and different characters having varying stat values, it would be great to be able to view them. Aside from that, however, it is good old-fashioned action-packed roguelike fun that fans are bound to enjoy. Upon completing a level, you'll be brought to the map. There is a separate map for each area. Your objective is to get from the left of the map to the boss level on the right. After each level you will get to choose which route you want to take, with each destination offering a specific encounter. The encounters include a shop where you can buy an assortment of different power-ups, the Rotten Witch, which offers you a trade of half your health in exchange for a gold card, the Cave, a special and often combat intense level where you can at times find special chests with numerous power-ups and upgrades. The Random Encounter provides a random outcome that can be good or bad. Good outcomes can revolve around gaining something, while bad outcomes can result in health loss or even losing your ammo required weapon. Stashes provide a quick pit stop, healing you for 2 hit points and giving you a small amount of ammo. The Companion Encounter provides you with a little companion that accompanies you for the rest of the playthrough. There are a number of different companions, each with their own specific attack or defensive skills. These skills are automatically activated and have a cooldown period before they can use them again. The cooldown period can be shortened with various power-up items. A recent free DLC update introduced the Baraban, a minigame where you spin the wheel in exchange for crystals where you gain the reward that the arrow lands on. The cost to spin the wheel increases by 100 for every use. Rewards include gold cards, companions, ammo, health, crystals and items. Enemy encounters are the standard level where you'll need to kill all the enemies before being able to leave and progress in your journey. There is also the Elite Encounter, which acts as a mini-boss level. Each zone has a possibility of one of 2 different mini-bosses to defeat. Upon defeating a mini-boss, they will drop a relic. Each unique boss possesses one of the relics. You can equip up to 3 relics at the start of the playthrough, each giving you small bonuses. There's quite a bit going on with the map screen at Danger Gazers, and a bit of planning is required if you're to use it to its optimum potential. The routes you take are often depending on what you need and your current circumstances. For example, going on a route with a shop or a Baraban where you don't have much in the way of crystals is a waste, while other encounters will present much more useful opportunities. So looking ahead and planning out is key to success. While the map screen isn't an entirely unique mechanic for the roguelike, it certainly adds its own spin to the game. The variety of encounters is fantastic, and each has its own advantages and disadvantages to them. This in return adds a layer of strategy and planning to the game that makes for a great deal of satisfaction when everything works out accordingly. On the first level of the starting area and the jungle, you will find the characters Bombus and Jazu. These 2 characters allow you to swap out special green gems in exchange for permanent unlockables. This is where the roguelike elements of the game come into play. On the first level of each area, except the first area, you will come across a cauldron beside a caravan. You can use the cauldron to turn crystals into green gems. You gain 1 gem for every 50 crystals you place into the cauldron. Unlockables include permanent passive bonuses, along with new and very powerful weapons that will have the chance of spawning in weapon chests from there on in. The gem shops are a nice addition that gives you an additional use for crystals other than their general purpose of using in the shop, Baraban or vending machines. The weapons and bonuses you gain from the unlockables are all worth it, giving you additional advantages along with some of the most powerful weapons in the game. Trust me, once you've tried the behemoth rocket launcher, you will never look at a normal rocket launcher in the same way again. The downside to the gem shop is that with the crystals already having multiple purposes, you need to decide whether you want to keep your crystals for the playthrough or sacrifice them for the sake of the gems. This means to unlock what is available in the shops, you are making each playthrough far more difficult for yourself in the process. A game that uses a similar mechanic and did it very well was Raisinroth. With Raisinroth, instead of having to spend general currency, you used special dark crystals that were dropped by defeating bosses and mini-bosses. The game rewards the player for their continued play while allowing them to play the game as normal, without having to make sacrifices, ultimately making a playthrough more difficult. The same method for Danger Gazers would work much better. Instead of having to use crystals to gain green gems, allow the player to stockpile the gems by playing the game and having them drop from bosses and mini-bosses. It will allow the player to unlock the bonuses and weapons without having to make the playthroughs needlessly difficult. Right now it takes a long time to unlock everything from the shops, which makes an awful lot of already challenging playthroughs ever more difficult. The second issue I would have is that I wish all 4 areas had a shop. Right now only the first 2 areas have one. As you progress and reach the 3rd and 4th area, you come to expect there to be one at each, much to your disappointment when you find that there isn't. It is likely a design choice due to balance, but with the game already being very difficult, having 2 additional shops with a few more bonuses and weapons wouldn't cause any form of dramatic imbalance. If anything, it would probably help just making it right, especially for solo play. The gem shop and its workings is a nice idea that gives you something new to aim for and new content to play around with, but ultimately it could have been designed in a far more fun manner. In its current form, despite the good it brings, the mechanic also brings its fair amount of needless frustration and difficulty too. There are 7 characters in total in Danger Gazers, each with their own unique advantages, disadvantages and special ability. At first you'll only have 3 of these characters available to play, but more unlock as you progress in the game. As an example, Deus has a higher cap in his ammo limit, but any companions he picks up along the way will have a lower skill recharge rate. He also has a shield ability that allows him to reflect projectiles for a few seconds. Dusk has a much higher rate of fire to the others, but his bullets move at a slower pace. He has a lightning ability where 4 bolts of lightning strike to the ground around him, damaging enemies that come in contact with him. But that is just 2 of them. Each of the characters changes up the gameplay quite a bit. Depending on which character you're using, you will need to adjust how you play the game and what items to focus on. For example, Dusk is a great offensive character due to his high fire rate, but his slower bullet speed means it's more difficult to take accurate shots from a distance. Deus can hold much more ammo for powerful weaponry, but companions aren't as useful, so choosing other opportunities on your journey are a better option. The special abilities are all good in their own right, but some could certainly do with a bit of tweaking or a change or two. Dusk's lightning ability is very ineffective and hard to target, meaning you're relying more on luck hoping enemies will walk into it as opposed to being able to use it tactically. Perhaps the ability to fire a lightning bolt in the direction the character is aiming would be far more effective. Deus' reflective shield is great, but a countdown timer on its duration wouldn't go astray. The same applies to Angel's invulnerability skill, which I also feel could do with a duration increase of 1 second. Other than that, however, the special abilities in the characters and the advantages and disadvantages they bring really add to the game, changing up the playstyle and ultimately increasing the game's replayability. When selecting your character, you also get to choose up to 3 of the previously mentioned relics. At the very start of the game, only the first relic, the Mask of Torture, is unlocked, but you unlock more as you defeat mini-bosses at the elite encounters. All the masks or relics give additional bonuses to the character, such as increased walking speed, lower cooldown to character skills, or lower cooldown to companions' abilities. The only exception is the Mask of Torture, which activates hard mode upon being selected. A total of up to 3 masks can be selected to use in a playthrough. Hard mode doesn't offer anything new to the game other than an increase in difficulty that comes in the form of enemies having double health and quicker or more widespread attacks. It is slightly disappointing that there's no introduction of new enemies or more challenging variations of normal mode enemies, such as champions. However, as a hard mode, it certainly does exactly as it states, and greatly increases the game's difficulty, especially in the later stages. However, going back to the difficulty spike issue mentioned previously, the 3rd and 4th areas become perhaps overly difficult for solo play, even for a hard mode. It is possible to beat the game on your own in hard mode, but you'll be relying on good weapon drops and will need to manage your ammo very carefully. The relics add to the game, furthering the roguelike elements. The bonuses are all small, but certainly help regardless, and give an incentive to risk and seek out the elite encounters and defeat the mini-bosses. Not to mention adding additional difficulty for those who enjoy a greater challenge and achievement hunters. The last roguelite mechanic is where upon defeating a boss for the first time you receive an additional pickup at the start of a playthrough. Once unlocked, they are permanent and apply to each and every run. These pickups come in the form of a new weapon, a power-up item, crystals and ammo. These pickups act as an additional bonus for your progression in the game. They aren't a big bonus and don't offer a massive advantage, but nevertheless it is a case of every little helps with starting off of a playthrough. As a whole, the gameplay of Danger Gazers is at a point I could call it good, but not anything more than that. The generation of levels is well done, there are lots of varied items, plenty of unique and gameplay changing characters, lots of interesting elements and a fair share of unlockables to add new content to the game as you progress. It plays well and offers everything that a roguelite fan would ever want, all the while being exhilarating when things go right. But it isn't without its frustrations. Due to the massive difficulty spikes and the rather counterintuitive design of the gem shop, a lot of deaths feel like it was down to the game's design and bad luck, as opposed to the fault of the player. The atmosphere of Danger Gazers is an absolute delight. There is no mistaking the post-apocalyptic theme in the game between the monsters and the journey, but there is so much more than just that. There's a real retro vibe throughout the game that is brought in by neon designed displays and a primarily jazzy theme soundtrack that gives it a really funky nature. Each stage and the boss of the game has its own unique track that, while jazz themed, has a number of other genres and outplaced notes that tend to suddenly pop in and out, sometimes completely changing the music track altogether, occasionally to the point of distortion. When you combine this no rules soundtrack, the game's theme and enemies with its funky nature and retro vibes, it brings you on a journey of complete and utter sensory overload. This overload then gives a sense that makes you feel like you're tripping out after eating something you shouldn't have, or you were given an extra dosage of morphine. It's just bizarre. The atmosphere is what separates Danger Gazers from any other roguelike out there. It's wacky, it's funky and it's completely bonkers. But it is that weirdness and those shocks to the sensory that brings you on one of the wildest adventures you'll ever encounter in the genre. Danger Gazers is one of those games that no matter how many times it pisses you off, you can't help but love it and keep going back for more. Between its retro and funky design and art style and the completely crackers atmosphere and generally enjoyable gameplay, is a game that brings you on one hell of an adventure. It has its annoyances along with designs and mechanics that could have been done better. There are times you will find yourself waving your hands around and cursing at the screen after dying for the 5th time in a row to a homicidal duck in a barrel or acid spitting plant. But when things go right and in your favour, it is one of the most fun, action-packed, mind-boggling and colourfully demented roguelikes you will ever play. And with that, I give Danger Gazers a 7 out of 10. Atmosphere is one of the most important elements of game development. You can make a video game with the best designed gameplay in existence, but without a good atmosphere, it will still be a bland experience. It is the atmosphere that brings that gameplay to life. It is the atmosphere that gives the game personality and attitude and creates a world that is alive. It is what brings you on a journey. Danger Gazers is a perfect example of just how powerful and game-changing atmosphere can be when done right.